This document calls for the creation of US space forces to dominate space and total control of cyberspace to prevent their enemies, i.e. those exposing them, using the Internet. The Internet was a twin-edged sword for these guys. First of all, it made it real easy to track people through email and their movements around the Internet and get a profile of them, but it also allowed information to circulate that they didn't want. Now they are trying to pull back on the bit they don't like, and they're going to do more and more of that, using the war on terror and stopping terrorism as an excuse. And wait for this. People say the Nazis disappeared in 1945. They just changed the jackboots for business suits. This document talks of developing biological weapons that can target specific genotypes. This may transform biological warfare from the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. These are the people running America, and these are the people, in terms of mentality, that are running the United Kingdom and other places too. Now, this document said this. This process of transformation will be necessarily slow, it said, long, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year after this was produced, 9 months after they came to power with Bush, we had what Bush called publicly our Pearl Harbor. Coincidence? Are you kidding? I go into the 9/11 thing in detail in this book, but I'm going to go through it here and connect it into all the things that may not seem to be connected but are right up to the present day. That was the real reason for orchestrating 9/11, to create a massive problem, glean a massive reaction, and therefore offer the solution of massive change. Again, the secret agenda is global centralization of power. The movie is we must stop terrorism. Well, stop doing it then. Dick Cheney called it a long, dirty war, a war that will not end in our lifetimes. That's the idea. How can you ever say you've won a war on terrorism? You can't, so you have to keep fighting it. That's the idea. That's why they've not gone for a conventional Second World War type situation. They've gone for the war on terror. The idea, I mean, it takes my breath away. This man is actually President of the United States. You know when he was at the G8 conference in Glen Eagles in Scotland, he rode his bike into an English policeman. You know that? He did. The policeman had to go to hospital. And then the next day, after the London bombings, he said the American people have to be vigilant. He can't be vigilant enough to miss an English policeman standing in the grounds of the Glen Eagles Hotel. The idea that George Bush is making the decisions is frankly ludicrous. Cheney is by far the power in the White House, and he's far down the chain of events and chain of command in terms of the Illuminati itself. These are front people. Another man feeding control into the boy wonder is his father, President of the United States. This man has some history. Born into a elite Illuminati family through his father, Prescott Bush, became head of the CIA, United States ambassador, head of the Republican Party at the time of the Watergate situation, became vice president and then eventually president. He actually had 3 terms as president. 2 were officially given to Reagan, who was the front man while Bush was controlling the situation. We then went to Clinton, who is very subordinate to him in the hierarchy, and then we go to his son. This man has had a massive influence on what has unfolded in this country for such a long time. That's a bit like the situation we're facing. And I love it when the newspapers say, George Bush said. No, George Bush read. Let's get it accurate here. That's all that goes on. And George Bush read actually rather badly. Then there's Tony Blair. See, The reason that you can't get a cigarette paper between Bush and Blair is they're both controlled by the same force and singing from the same song sheet. That's why you couldn't get a cigarette paper between Blair and Clinton either. It's no kind of great mystery. They're told what to do by the same people, so they do the same things. You know, it's so straightforward. And this is a very, very relevant expression of what we're looking at. Alice in Wonderland. Nothing would be what it is because everything would be what it isn't. And contrary-wise, what it is, it wouldn't be, and what it wouldn't be, it would, you see. Smoke and mirrors. Basically, they went that way. If that's where it's all going on, they want you looking here. Smoke and mirrors all the time. But in their desperation, I have to say, the smoke and mirrors are getting less and less dense to be seen. The Illuminati, not least because of their genetic nature, which is very ritualistic in the way it expresses itself, they are incredibly predictable. And I guess on another level, if it works, why change it? 60 years before 9/11, we had Pearl Harbor, a problem reaction solution to get the United States into the Second World War. Franklin Roosevelt, when he was running for his second term, went through the mantra over and over again. You can see it in the transcripts. I tell you, mothers of America, your sons are not going to fight in that war in Europe. Why? Because they need the cross or whatever to get him in. He's not going to say, oh yeah, when I get in, we're going to fight that war in Europe. Oh, we're not having that. No, your sons are not going. We'll have that, Franklin. He knows they're going in the war. It's on the song sheet. So when he gets into power saying they're not, just so he can get into power, he then has to, with his orchestrators, create a problem situation where he can take America into the war but be in the clear. As many books in great detail have documented, they manipulated and antagonized Japan in many different ways to get them to attack. And they had many different confirmations that the attack was coming from Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and they did nothing because they wanted the problem. And when it happened, what happened? They said, we must go into the war. We don't want to, but we can't have this. And we're not going into the war against Japan, we're going into the war against Germany and all the others. Between the wars, a document came to light, which was actually held up by a congressman, and nothing was done, of course. It was a document that came out of Britain, of course, and it was called Propaganda in the Next War. A guy called Senator Nye was the guy who held the thing up and said, what the hell's this? This is what it said. This was before the Second World War. To persuade her, the United States, to take our part will be much more difficult. So difficult as to be unlikely to succeed. It needs a definite threat to America. A threat, moreover, which will have to be brought home to every citizen before the Republic again take arms in an external quarrel. The position will naturally be considerably eased if Japan, and this might and probably would, bring America in without much further ado. At any rate, it would be a natural and obvious effect of our propagandists to achieve this, just as in the Great War they succeeded in embroiling the United States with Germany. Fortunately with America, our propaganda is on firm ground. We can be entirely sincere, as our main plank will be the old democratic one. We must clearly enunciate our belief in the democratic form of government and our firm resolve to adhere to the old goddess of democracy routine. 1941, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. Problem, reaction, horror, solution, America's in the war. Roosevelt said he never would. And they're playing exactly that on us now. Like I say, they're predictable. 6 years before 9/11, Oklahoma. And as a result of Oklahoma, changes were made to remove further freedoms. Clinton called within 24 hours of a greater militarization of domestic law enforcement to meet this threat. Timothy McVeigh got the blame for it, and again, as with 9/11 and the London bombings, there are some common themes and red flags. First of all, the fuel fertilizer device in the Ryder truck could not have caused that damage unless the laws of physics were suspended for that day. A guy called Brigadier Ben Partin, who spent a lifetime in weapons and explosives in the American military at a high level, wrote a 500-page report after Oklahoma, sent it to the media and all the people in politics, saying that it is impossible for a fuel fertilizer device to have caused that damage, because when explosives pass through air, they lose power very, very quickly. The only way, he said, that that building could have fallen as it did was for explosive charges to be on some of the pillars in the building, exactly what other people have said. The FBI could have produced the video evidence to show what happened with Oklahoma, because they confiscated all the video stuff from the cameras around the area, and they said they had to because of their investigation. When they brought McVeigh to court, all they had to do was play the video and then go for a cup of coffee. Okay, it's all over. They never produced the videos of what happened because the cover story would have fallen. And even when the trial was over, when they were asked, well, let's see the videos now, they said we can't because of national security. No, the security of the official story. And that's one of the great red flags to watch for. When us seeing something or hearing something would support the official story, we see or hear it. When us seeing or hearing something would destroy the official story, we don't see and hear it. Dead simple. And you can see it all the time. McVeigh was supposed to be doing this bombing as an attack on the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms because of their involvement in the Waco horror 2 years earlier.